All right, hello everybody. I believe we are back. It is going to be myself and Viperoon, not the Sarge, unfortunately, bit of a different face, of course.
Unfortunately.
But yeah, look, man, that was quite savage, actually. But I just mean in the sense that, it's maybe a bit unexpected, but we're here, this is our first cast together, I think, as well, right?
It is our first cast together.
It's going to be exciting times. And, I'm glad I get to come in on this game, Absolved versus Peak. Peak have been kind of my boys. I come from a bit of a CSGO background, I guess you could say, and an organization that I know in that sense. So I'm kind of excited to see, the second week they really did show. They really look good. But we'll see, right? We'll see. I think it's going to be a difficult matchup for them here.
I think for sure. These teams, of course, both undefeated, as you say, and very, very strong. I think Peak, maybe of the two, have looked less dominant in their wins, but at the same time, they've still looked very, very good. It's a very exciting match to come into on week 3 because it will allow us to see one of these teams will be going 3-0 and will be looking like the dominant force. And we are, next week, we're over halfway through the split, and it's kind of got to the point where we can't keep saying, oh, it's still early doors, right? It's still anyone's game because you've only played a couple of games. The season is not that long. So the performances today will be very interesting. If Absolved can look as dominant as they have against teams that are lower down in the rankings, or whether Peak will put up a bigger fight. I'm now the color caster. Or if Peak will show up and show that, look, we are better than Absolved. And I'm very excited to see how this matchup goes. Been impressed by both of these teams, and I want to see how they perform.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's still room, in places though for Peak, especially. We looked at that first week. It's a little bit of a question mark, in terms of the disconnect and everything. So they did get a bit of an advantage. But then last week, they were up against Viperia, right? And formidable opponent, last splits winners, looking relatively good, but able to keep on showing. But I think there are kind of, like I say, places that maybe improvements need to be made. And, I seem to remember their bot lane being quite effective, but then it's one of these things where, like you say, it's not been super dominant. It's been kind of close, some key fights, maybe performing well under the pressure. But if they go down early, that's what we need to see, right? If they go behind a little bit, how do they come back from that? And I think Absolved, again, as we said, undefeated teams here, both of them. Absolved are definitely a team I think that are going to look to find those early advantages and then crush them through that. I
think with Peak especially, and I saw Doctor making the same kind of point earlier, and I'm going to come out and say it. I'm just going to go in a bit hard right now. Saying that Peak won their first game and bringing up the fact it was a 4v5 is super revisionist history. Peak were in a really dominant position in that game when the disconnect happened, and I think they would have gone on to win that game 90% of the time. Peak were behind very much in that game for stretches of the early to mid game, but they were in the ascendancy and were at Baron, winning the game when the disconnect came through. So I would say that the argument that London are a really good team and have proved that they've been a very good team when they're 5v5, and they proved in that last game especially even they can be put out of deficit and come back, but I still think Peak would have won that game. So I'm excited to see how they can do against Absolved, where this could be not their first big challenge of the tournament, but the biggest challenge they've had so far. And for Absolved, again, it is very much a case of this is a team that came in with a lot of pressure, this is one of the top 2 teams, right? It was London and Absolved on everyone's tier list were the top 2. And with London having lost that first game, it's now on the mantle of Absolved. It's okay, we're the ones that can prove not only that we are a top 2 team, which performance-wise they have done, but we are the top team. Because a lot of analysts were saying London, then Absolved. And at the moment, Absolved are above them, right? So it's about saying we are the number 1 team. We're going to be going in at the end of regular season at the top, and we're here to prove that we are better than everyone else. And there's no better way of doing that than beating the other team that is currently 2-0 and saying, even a team that has looked pretty good, we're significantly better than.
Yeah, for sure. And, we look on the other side of the coin towards Peak. For me, it's a team that were put towards the bottom of some of the tier lists and things like that. And maybe there is, for some of these more solid teams, in the form of London and then Viperio, and sure, Viperio might be a little bit further, but as a squad, right, together for a little while longer, they look at a team like Peak and they're kind of like, okay, it's a bit of a new organization getting into League of Legends, some newer players, coming together, and perhaps underestimating them a little bit. And now we have to look, as you've said, we're getting to that kind of hump period of the split where it's towards the middle. Teams have had chance to be, doing some research, and you can't just come in and say, okay, they caught us off guard. We weren't prepared. We didn't know how they were going to play. It's like you've had time. There's evidence there to look back from. OPGGs can only give you so much, but once they start playing together as a team, you get a bit of a better picture of what the team itself, the 5-man unit, is after. So we'll see as we get into the champ select here, whether that research has been done, whether they are, going to be a bit more sure of themselves and a bit more well-read, so to speak, of what Peak are going to go for.
I think that Absolved, Peak, the time of people saying like Peak are randoms, we're going to underestimate them, that time's over, right? If you're underestimating Peak right now, you need to be getting rid of someone, some portion of your team needs to be got rid of, your coach, your players, whatever, because you cannot underestimate this team. They've proven multiple times that they are a very strong side. We are into champ select, Syndra, Karthus, Cassiopeia, and Soraka. Nothing too crazy in the bans so far. Very general stuff. Glad to see the Soraka taken away. Still a really, really strong pick. We saw it in the first game at Marksman. A couple of picks that we should be looking out for. No real marksmen have been taken away yet. So the Aphelios, Misfortune, Senna. Misfortune's been a very popular pick, and one of those picks that kind of can define the way that a champion select goes, because it kind of forces stuff like the Braum, stuff like the Ornn, and stuff like the Gragas. It forces picks to be made to and from, to like counter, either counter the Misfortune or take away so they can't counter Misfortune.
Certainly, there has been a very small amount of variancy, I think, in drafts for quite some time across all competitive League of Legends, really. Now, I am reliably informed if this gets locked in. I think our admins are obviously slightly ahead. That the teamer will be Sejuani here. Which, again, is this kind of team-based, okay, maybe not, doesn't matter. I'll hold the point, but I have maybe, spoiler alert, that we are going to have a proxy pick coming in here. But, Zach, how do you feel about that?
I like it, honestly. I like tanky junglers. I think that 10.4 is going to be where it really shines because of the changes to Barmy Cinder and all the items that build out of that. But I do like it as a champion. Really interesting gank paths. It's kind of got the Kayn idea, the Bard idea, where you need to be warding at all different angles because Zach can come at you from such a long distance. Going to be very good at dealing with a lot of champions. Aphelios, especially being locked in by Peak, priority marksman, but not the most mobile. And someone like Zach, Elastic Slingshot's on, uses that ultimate. Braum's not the best at dealing with Zach because he can get in behind and then get onto your carries, smacking you into each other and stuff like that. So I like the pick. I do like the Aphelios Braum. I think that Braum, obviously really, really strong champion right now, has really done well since the kind of mini rework he had, and Aphelios doing so much damage isn't really balanced. The Yasuo and Ezreal looking quite interesting because Yasuo is kind of seeing a little bit more play. Obviously great with the Zac. Ezreal I'm not a huge fan of, but it's kind of a safe pick.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, right? Very, very safe on the Ezreal, maybe if you're not sure what you want to play. But interesting to see we get through this whole, first phase and no Leona, no J4, no MF. So, we're not seeing those kind of three come together and maybe going for some more comfort picks on the side of Absolved in the form of the Yasuo, in the form of the Zac, maybe feeling confident coming into this and going for something that, a little bit different. As I had alluded to, this team over on the other side will be Sejuani. We are reliably informed. So, yeah, I think Sedge at the moment, again, in this similar kind of position where maybe you're going to see a lot more prominence in the next patch, but did get some buffs in places. And, it's one of those things where maybe in solo queue doesn't see a lot of play, but when you're in that 5v5, team scenario, the Glacial Prison is just so effective, placed well. It can really start some fights just as soon as you want to. So I can see why they would go for that.
I do really like the Sejuani pick right now. As you say, it has been buffed, so the attack speed at level 1 makes her early clear really, really nice. You do that, you accompany that with the Braum, and you've got CC for days in team fights, and really, really nice pick potential. Interesting that they banned out the Ornn, because we have seen some teams in other regions, so Baltics and other ERLs, wanted to go for this trifecta of Braum, Ornn, Sejuani, because your backline then just doesn't die. You've got 3 massive meat shields that you can put between your carries and the enemy team. The Fizz being locked in, I mean, really interested to see how this one goes, because something could be seeing a little bit more of in recent times.
Yeah, he has kind of fit in a little better, I think, right? And again, some small buffs in places just seems to be doing kind of that pick-based League of Legends, right? Really good stuff to just kind of, someone gets slowed, easy chum the waters, someone gets locked up, easy chum the waters, So certainly not a bad pick at all. The Bard, now I do love a good bit of Bard, but Bard Ezreal in the bot lane seems like a very kind of safe pick, but also just very interesting. We're not seeing, other than the set, I was going to say we're not seeing anything that you would particularly call meta from Absolved. Not that it's bad, but...
We've seen Bard being played a little bit around the place. It's not a horrible pick right now, and I think the Ezreal Bard doesn't make sense as a pair, like, on the face of it, but I think it's more of a case of Bard is really, really good. Again, I mentioned it when the Zac was locked in, of going into these kind of weird gank patterns and, like, getting over wards and stuff, and I think we saw... I'm trying to think where I saw it. Don't believe it was the UKEL. It might have been the Baltic Masters this week, where a team... No, it was... I think it was Square One, where a team picked Bard, and basically their whole plan was, early game, we're going to make cheeky rotations, and we're going to gank bot in weird patterns, and the enemy couldn't deal with it. They did go on to lose because they made some weird choices, but I think that I don't hate the Bard here at all. And the Ezreal is a champion that can self-peel and stay safe in that bot side. Aphelios Braum, you have to be very careful you do not overstep, because it's kind of the risk that if you do overstep on that Ezreal, you've got your E and your flash if it's up. But if the Bard's off collecting chimes, roaming around with the jungler, with the Zac especially, so you can create like super long-range weird ganks, then the Ezreal could be in trouble. But I think it's smart to pick something that is so safe as the Ezreal, because you can kind of just sit under tower, poke away at the farm to grab it, and keep yourself semi-relevant. And I think it's quite an interesting pick. I do like what Absolved have done here with their draft. They've gone, as you say, for stuff that isn't particularly meta, but it all kind of comes together into quite an interesting pick. I didn't see what Peak's last pick was, so I'll be interested to see what they've decided to lock in to finish up their comp. But yeah, I like the Absolved draft. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, it will be. I think it has the potential to really roll over. I mean, we see that with Yasuo's an awful lot anyway, but there is a lot for him to work off of in terms of knockups, from the top and the jungle side of things, certainly. So I think there is this potential, depending on where they focus. I mean, you would assume they would maybe focus towards that mid lane with the Bard coming up, with the jungle, helping him out. But all the same, I think there's an awful lot of potential here to just very, very quickly roll over them. So I think the Fiora would be looking at it. I also didn't quite catch the last one. I think they picked and then immediately, went to restart the champ select. But yeah, so the Fiora getting picked on the top side. I think, again, they have an awful lot of pick potential here. The side lanes, I don't know massively how Fiora goes into set. I think it could be okay eventually, but early, I mean, the shield and the true damage, right? But looking at Fiora, you can dash away from the true damage, you can riposte the true damage, you can possibly riposte the face breaker as well. So there's a bit of potential for kind of a skill-based matchup, I think, in the top side. Yeah,
I think the Fiora's, of the melee champs, I think it's kind of set. A lot of people say like set trash as melee champs. I think Fiora is one of the better ones into him, just because she is pretty mobile, can get a decent amount of damage down, dodge a lot of the abilities, and I imagine the riposte on the stun is reasonably easy to do. And by the stun, I mean the ultimate from Set. I believe that's probably reasonably easy, because Set, because it's such a short-range ultimate, it becomes very blatant when he's running towards you. Obviously, Fiora is not the priority target for that ability. You're going to be wanting to grab the Brawn or Sejuani to smack them down into the backline. We've seen some pretty brutal plays on Set since he's been in the game, where, especially in choke points and like Dragon Pit, he'll be grabbing up tanks and just like lobbing them into the backline, like one-shotting carries, which not really what you want. But I think Fiora is a very, very good split pusher and will cause the Set to have to do the same. And I think, as I say, is one of the obviously you kind of want something ranged, something like the Urgot, or maybe even something like the Renekton that can really, obviously not range, but can get through that shield. But I think the Fiora is not a bad pick here.
Yeah, certainly. It'll be fun to see, hoping for a bit of scrapping in that top lane from these two. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Based on the comps, there's some kind of usual stuff and there's some interesting stuff coming in from both sides. So it's very difficult to call. There's not that kind of, like I said, that wombo combo that we're sort of used to of the MF and the Leona particularly, plus a Jarvan in there, which is so common. But you know what, Viper, this is so refreshing to see, particularly on the side of Absolved, that they're doing their own thing, and they've got their own idea rather than conforming to the general shapes of drafts that we're seeing at the moment.
It's a nice handshake, gentleman's agreement that Senna, not banned, not picked, right?
Yeah.
We haven't seen Jarvan banned or picked. We haven't seen Misfortune banned or picked. All these champions that we see every single game, and while they're interesting champions to see, and I enjoy the gameplay style they have, it gets boring, right? It was like the old Aatrox Urgot top lane, right? It's an interesting matchup, but I don't want to see it every game. So really cool to see a lot of champions that we don't necessarily get to see that much. Your Fizzes, your Ezreal Bards, Yasuo even isn't that common. Zac is going to be super interesting to watch, and shout out to both of these teams for going for that. I'm very, very excited to see how the Yasuo Fizz lane goes, because looking at it, seems... I don't know, full disclosure, I'm usually a play-by-play, so take all my analysis with a heavy amount of salt. I think this would be Fizz favoured, honestly. Obviously the ultimate can be Windwalled, but I think the Fizz could be kind of bully the Yasuo out early, but I want to see how that lane goes, because I think it is going to be, with Thomas Go, someone he's been super impressive on these melee champions. Last week on the Irelia, he was terrifying. I want to see how he does with the Yasuo. Also kind of want to see how the set ult and the Yasuo ult works. If you can proc the Yasuo ult off the set ult, because they are airborne, kind of, but also
suppressed. Yeah,
so I don't think that'll work. But I think it'd be cool if it did.
It definitely does off the E, off the
absolutely.
So there's still, but then the thing is, you've got to be very ready for it, right? Because it's like a super brief knock-up.
Yeah, communication has to definitely be there. But again, with the Zac, Zac's gonna be your main
right
knock-up boy. They're gonna be the duo queue that's gonna be going in. But we are into game now, ladies and gentlemen. Absolved on the blue, Peak on the red.
Indeed, just those general setups. In terms of the wards, quite funny that Tyrion just gets to walk in, put a ward down, and Sedge is like, sure, why not? Doesn't really move towards him, but that's fair enough. They're both going to back and swap out for the sweeper, as Ankabet is going to just move down there and remove the ward. So OP play, gets a bit of extra XP to start with. Easy money as well. So there's that. But I think it's a little bit telegraphed that he will be starting on the red. As tends to be kind of the norm, I think, at the moment. Most people starting towards, I would say the top side, but I guess the Zac starting on that bot side got plans for the set, I suppose.
Yeah, you kind of want to be getting involved early with the set. Could even potentially be looking for an early gank bot at level 2, because he'll have, obviously don't want to take the elastic slingshot initially, because it's going to be horrible to clear with that, if any Zac players who invade will know. But level 2, if you can level that one up, can be very, very useful in those early ganks. Might not see it, but it allows the option to be there. And another interesting thing to note is that the Sejuani has gone for the machete start, which isn't what people might be used to seeing, but because of the attack speed changes in this patch for her, it's actually a pretty decent starting item.
Yeah, and it allows you to do those kind of single target camps a little faster as well.
Yeah.
So we'll see here what the plan is. Just over towards the top side. I think a grass coming in there from Rojojo, which normally you see the Conqueror, but maybe just looking to go for those shorter exchanges with the Fiora early on.
Yeah, I think that if the set goes in on the Fiora, and they try to look for the extended traders, the Fiora probably wins. Yeah. Which is why you've decided, you see Rojojo going for that grasp, saying, okay, I'm going to go in, get my attack off on you, get that heal, and I'm going to get out. And pretty smart decision, in all honesty. Kibbet might be going for a gank, though.
He is moving towards mid. We'll see, because Thomas Go, I mean, he's got, you know, the backup there. Gonna get the tornado available as well. Gets the knock-up, flashes away. Oh, turns around to get the first blood. Will eventually go down. Question now is whether Tyrion can continue things. It doesn't quite look like it. Actually gonna proc the passive here. I'm Kipet. Don't think he can quite get the kill. We'll see. Oh, gonna smite the one in the tower. It could be close. It could be close. He does get it. That's so smartly played, actually, with the smite. And there you are, the first exchange, going heavily the way of Peak.
Really, really nice exchange. Both junglers getting involved. Nice gank path from the Sejuani as well. And you've got to remember Fizz is melee, which is something you don't see too much in the mid lane for the Sejuani, but it means that she's going to be able to stack up her E super, super quickly. And she held it for a decent amount of time until Go had tried to escape, so that she could pop her E, stop him from moving around, and she might be looking for another return gank, the Sejuani.
Yeah, I was going to say, Thomas Go's got to be very careful here. I don't think he's got any minions to dash out on, can't dodge the stun, and well,
it's just too
that'll
easy.
be another kill coming in. That's a bit too greedy, I think, moving through all those minions. But it is one of those, it's like, oh, she's back mid again? Don't believe it. Don't believe it. Why are you here all the time? You know, I'm getting camped. Come on.
Just type... If you're Yasuo, just type jungle difference in the middle.
Yeah, right.
In all chat right now. But again, that is super greedy. You do not have flash or ignite. The Sejuani has shown no signs of being anywhere else. She wasn't that low in the initial 2v2, so didn't need to go B, and you've just given over another free kill. Yes, it's on the Sejuani, which, you're kind of, like, not too worried about her getting a bunch of kills. She's a tank at the end of the day, but she is going to be an absolute nightmare. And it's kind of shown that Go can be a little bit over-aggressive. We've seen these hero 1v1 plays, but this game, Alco Andy and Kibba are not going to give any time, and decent trade here in the top side.
Now, the Fiora really showing her claws early. I'm going to see the Zac coming over, though. This is what you were talking about. Those long-range ganks. Going to manage to pull her back in as well, despite the flash. Slowed by the smite. I don't think quite going to be enough, though, unfortunately. Rojojo maybe could have gone for the flashy, but was it on cooldown? Probably. Bit unfortunate, but at least they burn an early flash on the Fiora, and, you know, going to give a bit of pressure back towards that set.
Sejuani and Braum do start up on that dragon. You'll be able to see that this is actually being done pretty quickly, even though it's just two tankier members with low damage, because of the Sejuani E. Braum is able to help stack it up with every auto. So every 2 autos, Sejuani is going to be able to get increased damage. Well, every 3rd auto, she's getting the increased damage. They saw the Bard was mid, which is why they were a little bit hesitant, because they could have been collapsed on by the 2 members down there. But very, very smart play. As soon as they see that there's the jungle on the top side, they just go immediately and grab that objective. The Ocean Drake going to be pretty nice for them. Of course, the first 2 dragons not as important, but if it's free, you might as well take it.
Yeah, and I mean, the Rift Herald isn't up, so it's not like they can trade objectives. Very, very early control of the dragon. And like you say, you may as well. You may as well. Got mad respect for Regan in the bot lane, by the way, on the Omnistone Bard. It is starting to creep in a bit more, although it's kind of a for fun keystone. I think a lot more people tend to go towards the Electrica, at least from you know what I've seen. But not that Omnistone doesn't work, but it kind of, you know, it can be a bit interesting depending on obviously what you get.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have been talking about this Omnistone Sejuani that's been popping up in Korea and places like that. We're not seeing it today. It's very interesting because it's the kind of thing where I've seen players taking it in competitive play or in like UKEL, ERL level play. And I've talked to a few people about it and been like, hey, why is this good? And no one's given me a straight answer. They're just kind of like, oh yeah, Tarzan's been playing it. Oh, Clit's been playing it. It's like, but why? Like, I think nice to see the Aftershock. I think it is better, like logically better, but I don't know. It's an interesting one. It's a nice thought experiment of why Omnistone is good on Sejuani. Let me know in the chat if you have an answer for me.
Yeah, I mean, it just, to me, it seems a bit like a rune that you take if you're playing a slightly more, like, boring champion, to just sort of spice it up a bit. I'm not really sure. Because surely, like, I've had it sometimes where I'll get, like, lethal tempo 3 times in a row, or whatever, and it's a bit like, it's cool, but can I be using, you know, or Predator's quite a good one to get. That seems to come up quite a bit. But I don't know, it's just, it feels a bit weird, particularly when you're at the competitive level, where you would want to be making these decisions. I'll hold the point, because the Braum might just get caught off here. You have to be careful. In comes the knock-up. This might even be a double kill, to be fair, for Thomas Go. Oh, he's going to get glacial prisoned over the wall, though. The Chum the Waters plus the Ignite. They will trade it back, and they're going to keep on coming in, because Fiora's moved down way ahead of the Ezreal. They'd gone for that lane swap, I guess. So a lot of expenditure of the summoners there, and of course the one-for-one trade that kind of works out ultimately. You know, it's the support for the mid lane, and it's going to allow Alcove Andy to just really get good control of this wave.
Super unfortunate that Sejuani's there. It looked like such a great play for Absolved initially, but the fact that the Sejuani is over the wall at the Raptors, we'll be able to see it here. So initially this looks like a really, really nice pickup for Absolved. They do manage to get the nice double knock-up, which allows Thomas Go to get huge amounts of damage on both members. They get the kill quickly onto Braum, and they think, okay, this Fizz is on his own. But then Kibbit comes in, gets a huge stun off, and then from here it's kind of just cleanup, right? You're not going to be able to catch the Zac. You're not going to be able to catch the Bard, because they both have escapes over that wall. You can think about following, but it's kind of insane to do so, because you'll be in the enemy team. So ultimately, 1-for-1's fair, but if the Sejuani had been a second later, it would have been a 2-0 for Absolved.
Yeah, unfortunate timing, but a good response from Peak to just kind of damage control, ultimately. And like I say, although to be fair, you know, he does get some time on his own in the mid lane. Only 3-4 CS up, you know, now 2. So I suppose if he gets all these, but it's not like it's a massive lead. So they can kind of be happy with it, but I mean, this Yasuo in middle, I think what you're saying about Go being very effective in some of the previous games, Peak are hearing that, right? And they're giving him an awful lot of attention. And he's not really able to survive.
I think that is really, really smart from Peak, because you're seeing this player, like someone of Go's level, who can really dominate games on his own. We saw it on the Aurelia last week, and what they've said is they said, okay, we're going to put pressure in 2 or 3 ganks early, and they got a couple of kills off it, which is probably more than Peak could have dreamed of in that initial stages. And now the Yasuo behind him, farm behind him, kills, and honestly, Alcavangdi's got the run of the lane at the moment. Fizz, who's got ahead, can be an absolute nightmare, and they're just piling more and more pressure on. Zac and Bard looking for the gank mid potentially, though.
Oh.
You can just bounce away. He's such a safe pick.
That's a bit eager, I think, from Mr. Go. As again, he's just able to dash through and get away.
But look at all the resources they just had to put into mid lane right there. You've got the support, you've got the jungler, you've got the mid laner, and they didn't even burn a summoner from Fizz.
Yeah.
And in this time, you've got so much time for all the other members of Peak to be doing useful things, because you're like, we don't even have to commit to protecting our mid laner because he can do it himself. They're going to pick up another dragon here as well. And at the moment, Peak are just, even though they're only ahead by a couple of thousand gold, they're running this game. And the Infernal Dragon is going to put a huge target down on that bot side, because both teams really, really want this damage.
Ooh. Gotta be a bit careful here. It's kind of hard to call. Yeah, Kibbit's coming in. I mean, the suplex is there. But the flash forward into the stun, into the knock-up. Rojo Joe not able to make it away. Tyrion will indeed trade one back if he can live here. It's not the end of the world. Meanwhile, look at that damage from Alcove Andy onto Regan. Has to burn the stopwatch and the flash. Bit of action going on all over the place. But once again, I mean, I suppose that one in the bot side is a bit harder to call, but the overall resources, if you want to talk about micro leads, you know, Peak are able to burn stuff away from that Bard, of course. Yeah,
getting rid of the stopwatch on Bard is nice. Very nice use of it as well from Regan. Has to flash away to survive. But in the bot side, like we did jump away, Flex King will have been absolutely fine. Had passive, still has passive available, so it wasn't burnt. And under tower, dealing with that Zac passive can actually be really, really tricky. So it can be quite safe to be the aggressive one diving under towers. Obviously, in this situation, Absolved don't want to. I'm going to hold the point, though.
Yeah, it does look like we're going to see another engage. There's the knock-up onto 2 once again for Thomas Go. What can he get done? There is no Chum the Waters available for Alcove Andy. Going to get knocked up, going to get ignited, going to get scared away. Kibbit going to go down. The shutdown going towards the Ezreal, which is an awfully good pickup for him. And there you are. There's the kind of, you know, small wombo combo of the instant knock-up, instant ult from Tyrion that comes out effectively, and it will most likely result in a Rift Herald.
Yeah, interesting decision that the Fiora doesn't decide to teleport in. Is like, we're going to let this fight be lost. I'm going to get some damage on bot tower, get a plate for myself as well. So decides for the gold as opposed for the fight. Rojo's is going to turn up now to try and deny another plate and should be able to do so. It's going to be very, very close, but yeah, decent fight from Absolved. They do show off what they can do with these champion picks, and Rift Herald now will give some gold in mid. It's going to be shared out. I'd be surprised if Regan does stick around. We'll back away so it doesn't get any of the gold, which is smart, and I respect that from you, Regan, because giving the gold over to Thomas Go and Flex Quintiran is really, really nice, and Zach needs to be careful, though.
Yeah, again, they have been punished in places for overstaying their welcome. He's able to make it away, but at the cost of Flash. So, I don't know whether it's really necessary. You know, again, they are almost wasting resources, right? Obviously, he flashes to survive, but it's like he shouldn't really need to do that. Oh, bit of a dive coming in here. Thomas Go's got to do exactly the same. Thankfully, the wind wall will block away anything from the Bard, and this is quite nice, actually. They've got no minions under the tower. Will be the Bard to find the kill, but surely they finish off Alcove Andy as well, and 500 gold goes towards the ass. They're going to look to maybe run down Kibbit, but deciding against it as he's a bit too speedy. Gold's got to be careful here. I mean, Aphelios is right next to them. Will manage to get away, and a nice flash coming through from Liam to survive as well. So, again, very scrappy moments in this game. That dive under the tower really goes wrong for Peak.
I honestly, exactly what these picks are meant to be doing. You do see Regan moving around the map a lot, and they dive onto Yasuo mid, 2 or 3 members coming in from Peak, and then you're just like, oh, it's a 1v3, and then Zach and Bard are like, wow, we can totally get involved here. From out of vision completely, catching Peak off guard, and Peak need to be careful that they don't go for these over-aggressive plays. Yes, you've been looking very good, and you've been marginally winning these kind of pick-orientated small-scale skirmishes, but Absolved have so many tools to turn these into like favorable fights for themselves that you need to respect that. And that's the first prime example of 1v3s turning into 3v3s under tower really, really quickly. And it can be super scary. Peak have also looked kind of less... the best word. They've been losing out on these team fights as well. We've only seen a couple, but they have been Absolved dominated. So Peak have to be careful. You're in the lead, but it's so marginal right now.
Getting ever closer. And we'll see here. I mean, as this Aphelios starts to get some items under his belt, and quite a hefty CS lead as well, something that we've not really talked about an awful lot, because most of the action's been coming in other places, but here we are with the engage coming through. The Tempered Fate not quite going to land. The press will bring them together, and there it is. The face breaker into the last breath will result in a shutdown onto the Aphelios. Of course, that great system that he gets bounty gold for the amount of CS that he had, but all the same, that's what we're talking about, right? These picks coming in, and it's a very interesting pick-based comp, right? You don't quite think of it that way maybe on the surface. It's not like it's a Morgana or a Blitzcrank or a Nautilus doing all the work. But it is very much predicated off the back of that Yasuo. But working perfectly in the past few exchanges, you know, in the past few, we're not really pushed up, but we're over half the lane, you know, and that's enough space for the Bard and the Zac to come in and just zone us off and knock us up and, you know, make room for the Yasuo, really. And
it's so easy for Absolved to take fights on their own terms. Again, Curly Fry on the top side decides, I'm going to trade tower for kill, which on the face of it is fine, but you're actually trading tower for kill, and then you're losing dragon as well, which makes the play less fine. We do see in the bottom corner, the ultimate from Bard just misses out. Liam is just on the edge of it, and we see one more light jumps through after it's gone off, so nothing happens there. But yeah, it's very, very easy for Absolved to be like, okay, we want to take this fight on these terms because they have such a long-range engage, and if the Zac lands the knock-up, the Yasuo can instantly get involved. And that gives way, like, just plenty of time for people like Set and Bard to join the party. And the Bard, the Set E, has proven to be such a useful tool for getting these double knockups for the Yasuo ultimates as well. So something that we mentioned at the beginning of the game, but maybe didn't think was going to be so crucial, and it's just proved to be so good for Absolved. They managed to take the kill lead. Yes, they are still a little bit behind in gold, but 600 is basically nothing. And I really like how they're playing to this comp.
Bit of time to see whether Pete can come back from it after, you know, a relatively strong start. They're slipping a bit, still in the lead, as you can see in terms of the gold, but it doesn't quite feel that way. We'll definitely see here at the moment Absolved playing their game, doing it quite successfully, whereas Peak, you know, needing to find a way back in, so to speak.
Curly Fry can do a decent chunk of damage to Set right now. Has been off in that side lane a lot more than the Set has, so it's got a nice healthy farm lead. Yes, there's been less basically unimpactful in teamfights. Liam's in trouble here.
Liam is very much in trouble, and he's going to get melted, absolutely melted. I mean, Thomas Go getting involved kind of just for the sake of it. Nice little cancel coming in from One More Light there onto the elastic slingshot. That will create room for the rest of the team to get away, possibly. Curly Fry is somewhat cut off, but should be okay, surely, with the riposte. Yeah, indeed. Able to get away. But yes, while this is all happening over on the bot side, Alco Vandy is able to pick up a tower and, you know, perhaps able to keep on going. So again, it's kind of this, okay, sure, you get a kill, but Peak are able to still kind of make something of it, right? It's not completely in vain.
No, Peak don't get too much off that. Alco Andy in the bot side does get the tower, but you trade again. Tower for Rift Herald with the extra kill on top. Yeah. Not the greatest amount of value there, and Peak are looking to get these advantages in the side lane, but right now they're losing out so much because as soon as you see someone elsewhere on the map, you know the fight is not going to be a fair fight, being able to get so many members in so quickly for Absolved. They're just doing really well at pulling the trigger as soon as they know that they've got an advantage. And yes, the early game was pretty slow. Yes, they would overextend in certain positions, but right now the team is grouped up and it's not so much about individual 1v1s. They've looked very, very good. Excited to see how they look moving forward. Peak are still ahead in the gold terms, but a little bit concerning about their indecisiveness and unwillingness to take these fights.
Yeah, they're getting scared, right? They're a little bit shook. When it was going well, it looked pretty decent for them, and now they've kind of had their confidence knocked, as it were. And, you know, the mental game is very, very important. Like, they're kind of going to have to come back for it. And it's something that I think they've done quite well in previous weeks is, you know, removing what everyone kind of, you know, maybe said about them coming into the season and just playing their own game, playing effectively as a team. And now you've come in with Absolved and their draft has been like, okay, like, I know what these champions do, but it's a bit strange to see, maybe throwing them off a little bit. And as the comp has come together, it's really thrown them. Now, this is kind of a nice idea. I suppose I thought they were maybe trying to counter-gank for Alco Vandy, but it looks like not, right? He's taken the brunt of this. He doesn't actually go down. Now, that could be a problem. The TP coming in, Gould will take down Alco Vandy, but at what cost? It looks pretty decent. Thomas Go had not used his ultimate, gets the last breath onto 2, and of course that armor pen from it going to give him an awful lot of damage. Suppress comes through from Rojo Joe, and that is an extremely dominant fight. Curly Fry not able to get there as fast, and he's one of their stronger members, but my goodness, Viperoon, it looked kind of good for a second, right? You know, Alco Vandy able to make it away despite all the resources used onto him, all the attention that he gets, and yet they're still not able to find anything, you know, compared to their opponents. Decent.
But I think the thing is, they're not actually blowing that many high-value resources trying to get Alco Vandy. You'll see no ultimates have been blown up to this point. Is true. And Alco Vandy does manage to get back into his team, but Zach gets into the backline and is just causing so much mayhem. He will go down eventually, but here you can see that Thomas Go gets the double knockup, gets the damage himself, and this is pretty much all him. Regan is helping. And in the backline, you will see Gold going down on the side. But that's kind of fine. You're not too worried because your damage and the people who are important in this fight right now are the Set and the Yasuo. Because Set is such a big body, it's going to be pretty much impossible to take him down at this stage. And Thomas Go gets a massive amount of cleanup for the triple kill. Won't be able to get Curly Fry, who is proving that the split push has got him a lot of gold and he's now going to be a force to be reckoned with. But I'm going to have to hold it there.
Yeah, going to be another fight breaking out as Kibbit just kind of face-checking on his own walking in didn't respect maybe that the full reset had already come in and they were starting to move back into lanes and look towards Baron. May well be slightly problematic as Tyrion does have to drop the Rift Herald and, you know, creating pressure if they decide to contest the Baron, which they may well not because they don't have a jungler, and it's a very, very big, messy kind of play coming in. Curly Fry a little desperate here, just chasing after Regan. Gonna get stunned up. The flash comes in as well. We'll see. It'll be a close one, but not going to happen. They will at the very least secure the Baron. The Tempered Fate going to keep all of them in place here. Nice stun to come through. Curly Fry is still alive, though. That's the thing you've got to look towards here. Clean riposte, as well as Alco Vandy helping out, getting the shutdown onto Thomas Go. But Gould, of course, has started to scale up. All this we've been talking about, you know, the mid lane, a bit of the top lane. You've got that Ezreal, that safe pick, who's got his Trinity Force, who is getting towards the Mirror Mana, and is able to just kind of make up for the damage. His teammates take the brunt of the force from the side of Peak, but just watch him in the back here. You know, he's just constantly dishing out damage, and no one's able to touch him because they've lost their front line, essentially.
Why Curly Fry decides to try and pick the Bard, follow him through the journey, it's interesting. Yes, he comes back and he's doing a lot of damage, and this is pretty close, actually. The lack of jungler is a problem. But the decision to go for the Bard rather than turning and try and start the fight while Baron is on your side and while there's still a chance to steal it is not the best decision, in all honesty. Yes, you do manage to take Baron off 3 members. It's just the bot lane that will go off with it, and Gould obviously not able to get Alcavandi as he does run into the loving arms of Sejuani. But I really don't like that decision. You're in a decent position to fight with Baron being up and deciding to take an action that you know is going to end up with you getting stunned. Like, even if you then go on to kill the Bard, that means you're pretty far away from where the actual action is, and killing a support is not worth losing out on the potential to steal Baron.
Wild exchange once again, but now Peak are starting to really lose their lead that they once had, and of course just falling further and further behind. It's a little problematic. As you said, we've seen the potential of Curly Fry, but there's an awful lot to focus on the side of Absolved. Alco Vandy, he wants the wave, but he does not want to touch it at all. Gonna wait for it to come to him, and even that might be somewhat dangerous. Lockup comes in. No follow-up because he doesn't have vision.
But now the siege is on. Obviously can't get the most successful 1-3-1 go, I guess you might potentially want to do when you have the first Baron, just because you've lost it on your split pushing members, your Set, your Yasuo, etc. So gonna have to be going for a bit of a more straight down a lane strategy. Yes, you can still attempt the 1-3-1. We do see the Set was in the mid lane, potentially looking towards top, but again, the Fiora on the split push has got so much gold in her pockets that you don't necessarily win the 1v1. So looking for a fight, looking to try and force these again, but this time Peak are playing much more defensive and being much more respectful because they've learned their lesson, right? In the mid game, it was all about, well, the early mid game, it was all about the Zac and the Bard creating these picks and the Yasuo being able to follow up and do so much damage. But now Peak are like, okay, we're going to be respectful. You've got Baron. Let's hold this out. Fiora's doing great in the side lane. Let's just let her do her thing. And we'll just make sure that no one else is dying. And Absolved can't really find a way through.
See how they overcome this hurdle. I think as we get a little later, the mantle's going to be passed off from that Yasuo onto the Ezreal, really. Sure, obviously the Yasuo is not going to stop doing damage, but he'll take the brunt of the attention, I think, is maybe the idea going into the late game, and then Gould will just be towards the back, being safe, peeling for himself. They do need to be careful not to get too ahead of themselves. I think, yeah, certainly, you know, part of the issue is indeed the Fiora that is just unbeatable in this side lane. But I think I could be wrong here. It could be... Okay, I'll hold the point, because actually, you say unbeatable in the side lane. I mean, under the tower, got to be very careful. That is a massive blunder from Curly Fly to just kind of give that kill away. Tyrion, despite being frozen up, will keep on moving through the air. And Kibbit's got to flash away. Goodness me, I mean, that's a mistake, surely.
That is not how I thought that matchup was going to go at this stage in the game. So massive kudos for Jojo for getting that 1v1 kill under tower. The tower did help, but it wasn't even like the Fiora's caught out under tower, right? It was Set doing like half a health bar with the ultimate and Fiora not being able to riposte it. So very, very well played. They're going to be able to pick up this top tower as well. And I think one thing that we kind of glossed over is they picked up their third Infernal Drake before that play happened. So one more away from getting that soul, and a 4 Infernal Drake soul. Gold in a lot of trouble though.
Oh, he is indeed going to get taken down by Alcovandi. Alcovandi able to go golden, stay alive for a little longer, trying to get away, not able to do so. The TP coming in from Curly Fry, though. This could be absolutely massive. Liam in the back. Keep an eye on him. Curly Fry taking an awful lot of damage, mind you. Kibbit as well going to go down. Liam trying his absolute damnedest right now, but not able to outlive. They just don't do enough damage. Don't do enough damage towards the Set particularly, but also that Zac as well. And Absolved, able to just keep moving forwards.
We haven't really talked about Liam this game on the Aphelios, and in that fight we kind of saw what the peak compositions would have done if it was ahead. If the peak composition was ahead and Liam was dominating, then he would have just melted through the entire composition from Absolved. But as it was, his frontline just was killed reasonably quickly. He was just there dealing damage, but then like, wait a second, why is the enemy team still alive? And he gets pounced on because his frontline's just been destroyed. The Aphelios is such a good pick, and the composition is doing okay at keeping him alive, but it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's so difficult for him, I think. Like, it's just a... Like the Set, man, do you know what I mean? I think, so now he's got the Sterax. I'm not sure maybe whether he's just purchasing them. I've seen a few into the third item will go like gargoyles, maybe, and he's just like absolutely unkillable. To be honest, if you go kind of some slightly tank items, obviously the Thornmail is a great help at the moment. Good against the Fiora in lane, and the Aphelios as well is going to feel the burn slightly. But I don't know. We could probably talk for a while about this champion, but he is just so hard to kill, deals so much damage, got a good amount of CC. You know, what more do you need, really? He's
just strong across the board, really did receive some nerfs, but is still one of those top picks. And we thought that Fiora, well, I thought especially Fiora could be the answer. And Fiora committed so much time in those side lanes, getting the gold lead and kind of letting Absolved pick up early fights in order to get ahead. And now Fiora's not even winning the 1v1. So you let Absolved back into the game by not using your teleport to join in these fights, these 4v4s, and you let Set do the same. Set is crushing right now, and the Fiora is, while doing a decent amount of damage and surviving relatively long in his fights, it just doesn't seem to matter right now.
Yeah, she's not able to kill the whole team, right? It is a difficult one. It is a very, very difficult one. The second Baron up and absolutely melting away, as you would expect at this point in the game. Are they even going to get in range to contest? I think they will just about, but we'll see. Tyrann's come out of the pit. However, Kibbit gets stunned up by the Bard, thank God, because I think that might just have been a little risky for them. We're going to see a fight break out, of course, after the fact. Alcovandi in the middle of them just gets immediately broken as soon as he comes down and is targetable again. Liam trying his absolute damnedest. Regan is a target he can deal damage to. Curly Fry as well, you know, going to move in here and gets the Zac passive. But other than that, yeah, nothing much coming in. They're going to surrender because that was GG and Absolved. I mean, into, you know, kind of the latter portions, I would say, of the early game, then into the mid, then into the late, just able to turn the game on its head. Peak were looking very good, and, you know, we saw this Yasuo go down massively early on. I think he was like 1-3, maybe even 1-4 at one point. And then the pick-based, you know, the Bard coming in, slowing them, Zac will get the knock-up onto one or even two members, and some well-placed last breaths. I think that's the best thing, is that, you know, in the mid lane, the Yas was able to come in, go picking his moments very well when it counted, right? Instead of just